And we are live. Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back to yet another edition of Dad Advice. Good to be here broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia, and sharing a little bit of time with you on this Tuesday. I'm going to go ahead and put my information into the comments here on Reddit so people can kind of find me and get to work. Get to business shortly thereafter. So, all right, here we are. So, and if you haven't been here before, just to, I'm typically here 5 Eastern, which is a few minutes late today. It's 5:07, but I am typically here every day at 5 o'clock because I do think one of the most important things about being a dad is being consistent, right? That's what we want in our parents. That's what we want in people in general, is consistency. And so I do try to provide that as part of kind of what we're doing here, because I think that's just an important thing, and I try to bring that to the world a little bit. And maybe you can bring that to your world a little bit as well, a little bit more consistency, because I think there's something stable about that. There's something grounding about that. And hopefully that's something that you can mirror into the world as well. So I guess I'll start, as I always start, talking about the whole person model and a reminder to myself. It's actually nice that I do this every day, because every day I get a reminder to myself to not focus on the 1 or 2 negatives that I feel about myself, that I tell myself about myself. Instead, I can focus on all the positives, all the good things I'm bringing into this world, and see myself as a whole person, because that's the honest truth. It's not fair just to look at the 1 or 2 negatives when there's so many other things that both I and you have that are positive. So it's false to just hyper focus on the 1 or 2 negatives. I think we can both agree to that, but we all do it, and I think we can also agree to that. So the idea that I just want to throw out there is to take a moment when you find yourself, when I find myself focusing on those 1 or 2 things I might not have that somebody else has, trying to compare myself, step back and say, hey, I'm a whole person and they're a whole person. They have a couple bad things and a lot of positive things. I have a couple bad things that are probably a little different than their bad things. But in a whole person, you can see their beauty. You can see their beauty. You can see your own beauty. And that's what I hope you can see for yourself, that you're a beautiful person and you can live from that place of beauty. And then what I think you'll find is that will enable you to have some internal freedom to fly and do whatever you want in this world over time. So that's how I like to start. Okay, so a couple things I've kind of put out there. There's a phone number, 470-575-0111. I encourage people to give a holler, and we can chat through maybe what you're going through, as opposed to just doing it on the Reddit chat here, but to have something specific to maybe talk through and work through together. Once or twice a week, someone's brave enough to do that, and I always encourage it, because I think that we can learn through the process of hearing someone work out something. Sometimes that's a great thing that you can help other people, right? That's what I'm here for. And if you want to step up and do that, hopefully you'll get something yourself from the process. But you'll also, in the process of other people will see, hey, this is how I can work through, this is how I can talk through something that's going on in my life. Because we can do these processes ourselves through journaling and through even talking to ourselves. There are a lot of different ways that we can get to the bottom of things. In fact, since there are no questions yet, I'll talk to some of those things that I found effective. And if you have a question, please throw it in the comments. Give me as much detail as possible if you want an answer that'll be specific to you, because again, I don't know you and I can't really read your mind to understand some of the specifics. So I'm just going to answer the question as you place it in there, which might be totally different, right? And I think it's also an important thing to just remember that the way I'm viewing my world and the way you're viewing your world are fundamentally different. And sometimes just as asking a question, hearing me answer kind of can bring out how different our worlds really are, if that makes sense. So, and I will go ahead, and as always, I'm just a dad that gives advice here on the internet. I'm a random dude with some life experience. I have 3 kids, 15, 19, and 20. I do believe that I've lived through a lot of interesting things in my life, and that I have maybe a perspective that I can share that will add some value, and it seems that some people will agree. And hopefully you'll find that I'm going to offer some advice a little differently than you're typically going to hear. And the nice thing about advice is that you don't actually have to listen to it. If it doesn't make sense, you can just say, hey, this guy doesn't make sense, and move on and find some better advice for yourself. But I do believe that I have a different perspective that I'm bringing to the world than everybody else in many topics. And that's kind of part of what I'm trying to do here, is share my truth. And hopefully we all get to share our truth. I hope each one of you has the opportunity to share whatever your truths are with the world, because that is part of what makes you special and unique in the world. And the world needs you to do that. So, all right. Well, I guess I'm gonna. I guess I should answer this one first. So, how does one deal when life gets boring? And then I'll go back towards some of the questions at the top, but I did want to hit that one up straight off. So I would say that for me, what I've done when life gets boring is I've tried to work into that space of boringness, because I know that it's boring now, but pretty soon life is going to be crazy. And that's just the nature of life, is that it kind of has that up and down flow to it. So what I try to do in general, no matter where I am in life, is to be in that space. And so if it's a boring space, I'll actually lean in a little bit into that boringness and try to appreciate what boring can teach me. Now, it's a really hard lesson. We don't like boring, right? We don't like to, if you ever try to meditate for more than 30 seconds, you'll see your mind doesn't want you to meditate because it's boring. And part of the way we're programmed, I believe, just is to do. That's part of makeup of who we are, is we are doers, right? Because if we weren't doers at one point in time, we would have all just kind of died. So there's something in us that says we need to do. So that's what we have to fight when it comes time to those boring times. So there are a couple of things we can learn from boring. One is just learn a little bit about ourselves in that quietness of the boringness, and pay attention and see what we learn. We can also create a little bit of change to something that's a little bit uncomfortable, which in general I think that is a good place to make ourselves uncomfortable a little bit, because we learn something in the process. If we're constantly doing the same thing, we're never learning, we're never growing. So by doing something a little bit different, we're going to learn something from it. And then obviously you can change things. You don't have to leave them boring. You can, create hobbies and find things to do. There's always things to do. You just have to decide what is it that you're interested in learning about, which is the cool thing. You can always learn something new. You can always challenge yourself with a new hobby, and make things less boring. So, and sometimes it's about figuring out what is there that would be of interest to me, right? That's a process you'll have to go through of what am I interested in, kind of where's my path going. But I agree, being bored is hard. Now in COVID, it's not even a lot of TV. I was just reading today how they're running out of TV because they're not producing new TV. So it's like, to some extent, there's nothing fresh maybe out there. But boring is also a privilege. And so I think one other lesson we can take from boring is that you can take a step back and say, how privileged am I that I can live a life of boredom? And how grateful can I be, right? Because gratefulness creates its happiness. Happiness is, in my mind, a big part of that. What we'll use for happiness is that feeling of fulfillment, which comes in a feeling of gratefulness. So take a moment, be thankful that your life is boring. Be thankful that there's no health issues, there's no work issues, there's no family issues, right? That's a tremendous place of privilege. And so I guess that would be my thoughts on boredom. Good question. All right. I was illegitimate and did not know my father. He died when I was 5. My mother said he had my baby picture in his wallet. Can you tell me, as a dad, what he might have thought of me? So I think, yeah, so I can, first of all, I'm sorry that you really never got to know your dad. I think that's obviously it's a hard thing. So I think that, especially, look, if he had your picture in his wallet, it means that he thought of you. And obviously I don't know for what reason he wasn't able to be in your life before you were 5, for whatever reason that was, but clearly he cared about you and he loved you. You don't carry pictures around of somebody that you don't want a constant reminder of, that you don't want to show to your friends and show off, right? So think about all the times he probably pulled that picture out and said, this is my kid. So he clearly had warm feelings for you, and I think that'd be a kind of it's a nice thing to know that he had that in his pocket, right? That he wanted you close, and for whatever reason, he couldn't be closer than that. So that's quite beautiful. So I think you can really, think about that and really think about how he wanted you as close as you possibly could be at all times, to be, walking around with him through life. So I think that's pretty amazing. Okay. Should we berate people who refuse to wear a mask when necessary? So I'm going to abstract the question a little bit to make it not so current eventy. But let's talk about what should we do when people are doing things that we don't agree with. Now, specifically around the masks, it's something where what you do impacts my health. So it compounds the general issue a bit. So the answer is, I think we need to walk in kindness. That's my truth. So I don't think berating people, I think if we feel a need to berate people, that's because we have something in us that needs to berate, right? It means that we have some anger, we have some fear, right? Can you see the fear that creates that desire to berate another person? Or maybe the one-upsmanship or the ego, right? So if you're approaching it from a kind place, you're not going to want to berate the person. You're going to feel sorry for the person for their misdeeds. You're going to have some compassion for them that they don't really understand things. But so my first approach is really just to talk to this aspect of being angry at people and berating people. And that's if they're not directly impacting you, right? So, because like I said, this is something, if we focus it back to masks, there's an aspect of a societal issue, right? Right, and let's make it more broad. If someone in society is doing something that you don't agree with, but it doesn't impact you, right? So there's a clear border between you and that person. So I think just approaching them with kindness is a better approach. Now, if you have to be in a space and now someone is not wearing a mask and so it's causing you bodily harm, again, I don't know that berating is fair. Assuming they have a right to be there, you get to choose to be there, or you can vacate. And the fact that they're impacting your life, I don't know that it's fair to say that you're more important than they are in this decision process. And so that's when you leave. You don't stick around. Now, if it's your space, you can ask nicely, hey, please, if you want to be in my space, and this is about creating boundaries in your life, I think it's important that you be able to create your own boundaries of what you're going to allow and not allow in your life. Because at the end of the day, that's part of your personal freedom. Part of your personal freedom is to have the ability to create boundaries of what you're going to allow in your presence. So then that's going to be a different kind of perspective. But again, I don't think it's about berating. I think it's important for us all to walk. The world has so much hatred right now. There's so much hatred in the world, so much fear in the world. Like, let's bring kindness and light to the world and make it a better place. Because isn't that the world you want to live in? We can choose what world we live in. You get to choose, each of us. It's a choice. Are we going to live in the world of fear? Are we going to live in the world of hate? Or are we going to live in the world of kindness and grace and light? And you get to choose that for yourself. I know for me, I'd rather live in that place of kindness and grace. But I do understand that how the fear permeates everything. And so we have to be able to create a bubble and live in a bubble in a certain way to be able to do that. Okay. Top 3 books. And thank you, Lizelman Jr. Top 3 books. So the thing I'll tell you that what I found about books is that, well, first of all, there's a time in my life when I read a lot of fiction, and then there's a time in my life when I haven't been reading a lot of fiction. So the thing about books is the best book is the book for you wherever you are, right? So we talk a lot about self-improvement, on this channel, so, and it's a path. Self-improvement is a path. It's where are you now? What do you want to improve? And then how do you get to the next level? So if you're asking, fiction books, there's so many good books. If you've never read Tolstoy, I'd actually encourage you to read Tolstoy. I read that in college quite a bit, which was kind of random for me, and I really enjoyed it. That's probably one of my all-time favorite authors. Now, if you're more of a fantasy person, if you haven't read the Robert Jordan novels, that's a lot of fun. So those would be my kind of top fiction. Nonfiction, like I said, is really about figuring out where are you on the path and what is the topic that can take you to the next level. What topic will let you level up, right? So, and then you find what book really speaks to that, and you'll be able to read it really quickly because it's of such interest to you. And only you know what that is. So I know for me what it's been, but what I've noticed is that every time I read a book, it's the best book I ever read because it's exactly what I needed at the time. Or else I can't read a nonfiction book if it's not feeding my soul at the time as I'm reading it. Otherwise, my brain drifts, and I'm just like, it just drifts and doesn't keep my attention. So in order to keep the attention, it has to be something where I'm like, oh yeah, that's it, and that. So that's where I'd kind of take that question. Single best piece of advice anyone has given me. Single best piece of advice anyone has given me. I got it right here in front of me. I got it right here. I'm going to show it to you. It's from my kids. You're never too old to get another dream or set another goal or dream another dream. Yeah, that one was good. I got this other one. Let's see. This is from my daughter. I can't show you, and I have a couple of, I can't show you a couple of them. You're great. This is my daughter. She was like 8 or 9. You're great. You're awesome. So pull your head up and just say, I'm awesome and cool. I'm who I am, and I can do anything. I am. Say your name. That's some great advice. And then I got a couple I love yous here too. Not really advice, but special things to me. Things that I remember. So thanks to my kids for those lessons. Let's see what else we got here. Okay, still capable of physical exertion and only 1 week left to live. What do you do? First thoughts. So first thoughts is I reach out to my family and I spend that time with them. It's pretty simple. Yeah, that's really easy for me. Spend time with loved ones, spend time with friends, and laugh with them. That would be, I think, the ideal way to end my life. Right? Because I think you might think, oh, I'm going to do this or I'm going to do that. But the reality is that the stuff I've learned that I really appreciate in life is the time that I have with people that I love. And I think you'll find that to be true too. You can do all you want. You can have all kinds of different experiences. But at the end of the day, it's the relationships we build and the heart that we put into them that has the most meaning. Let's see here. All right. What are my hobbies? I travel. That's my hobby. I'd say that's my biggest hobby. And self-work. I like to think about these things that we talk about. Right? There's a reason why I think I have something to offer on this topic is because I've spent my whole freaking life thinking through these things, like more than a person probably should even. But that has been my place in trying to understand the world, understand myself. So I definitely say my hobbies are thinking about myself in my world, and which is its own adventure in a way. So I'm an adventurer is how I kind of would see it. And then travel and kind of seeing cultures and seeing the world and how other people do things. And also, actually, I like business. I like doing deals. I like doing business deals. That kind of is a hobby, but not many people call that a hobby usually. And music. I like playing and writing music. So those would be my top hobbies. What does boring teach us? Also not nitpicking, but boringness isn't a real word. So I will tell you that let boring teach you. And let's see what boring says to you. I think for me, boredom shows that we don't like to be bored. And what does that mean? What is that natural tendency that might be? How is that affecting me? How is that natural tendency to not be bored affect my life overall? Creates a whole path that I can walk down. Okay. Tell us a dad joke, please. I read a dad joke today on Reddit, and I was like, that's a good dad joke. I don't remember it anymore. Sorry. I'm sorry that your dad beat you. That's horrible. Share my music. It's actually out on YouTube. If you go to my YouTube channel, I think you can find it. Okay. Real Jarl Balgruff. Love to know the background of that name. I wanted to join the Army after high school, but my parents are really against it. I'm still planning on doing it, but what should I tell them to relax them? What would you want to hear? So how do you go against what your parents want, to abstract the question a little bit? How do you go against your parents' desires when they conflict with your own desires? And again, I don't know how old you are. And I don't know if the idea is I'm going to do Army and I'm going to do GI Bill to kind of get them to pay for college. I think to a large extent, I think there's a question you didn't ask, which I guess I started to answer. But I'll answer your question first, and then let's talk about some of the practical thoughts around the question. What would I want to hear? I mean, clearly, I want to hear that you're not joining the Army. That's what I want. Right? So parents have desires that they want for their kids, and you're not meeting that desire. Now, what I don't know is, are they offering to pay for college? Right. So part of this, to me, the first thing I'm kind of wondering is, here we go. Okay, so my dad will offer to pay, but you want him to retire and slow down. So I tell you, you want to give me a holler? Let's talk it through. Let's talk it through a little bit. I got the number. I'll put that back in here again. You open to that? 470-575-0111. Let's talk it through and see, because it's a detailed question, to be honest, to give you some real advice. But otherwise, I'll just keep talking. So look, your dad has dreams for you. So I hope the reason you're not going here's the thing. Your dad has a choice, and you have a choice. Your dad's making the choice that he'd prefer to work than you go to the Army. You have a choice, in a way, to kind of take the opposite approach, which is refuse his money, but you don't know that he's going to stop working, by the way, right, first of all. But you have a choice to kind of disappoint him and go to the Army, and then you get to go to the Army. So you both have choices. Part of this is that I would say you could respect your dad's choice. Respect his gift, if that's something he wants to give you. But I hear that it's important. I mean, so the first thing I would just say is that I think you can point out, and again, if this is just, I'm going to go to the Army, I'm going to get to do the GI Bill, and that's kind of, I see a path there that kind of works. I mean, I think the first thing you really just want to point out is to say, Dad, I want you to stop working so hard. I want you around in my life, and that's one of the motivating factors for me doing this. And maybe in the process, it'll come out, well, maybe there's a middle ground where he doesn't have to work so hard and you can still go to school. Maybe you can figure out a way that everybody can be happy. It just, I guess I don't really know. I guess this is the issue. I don't really know if you want to join the Army, right? Is that a thing for you, or is it just a path that doesn't harm your father? And I think those are going to be two different sides, and two different things to think about. When you see the youth protest the injustice with which we deal in life, do you feel antagonistic or empathetic? Yeah, I can't imagine anyone being antagonistic against youth protesting. I mean, I guess there are people. There's always people, right? Empathetic, absolutely. But that's the role of youth, right? So historically, if you look throughout history, at least modern history, the youth are the ones that create change. I'd be disappointed in the youth if they weren't standing up and doing something about it. They're the ones that haven't yet been through the pressure cooker of life and come out bitter on the other end. The youth are the ones with hope that have some naivete that they can then bring and use that as power to create passion. So I believe that change happens from the youth. That's where it happens. It's historically, I mean, just look throughout the protest movements of Vietnam or any, look at any of the pictures that get posted on Reddit of people creating change. They're younger people. That's just the nature of where change comes from. They're able to see things differently than the generations that are a little bit older and set in their ways. So absolutely, I think, just like I would hope that there's a passing of the baton. So just like I hope that when I was younger and I was passionate and that I would hope that the adults would look at me with an eye of, oh, well, maybe things are changing a little bit. And so now we all need to change. But absolutely, I think it's awesome. I mean, first of all, this is even for broader things, but what's going on right now, there are injustices and there change is needed. And so I think it's wonderful and applauded and encourage you guys all to go out and do what you can to create change and create the world to be a better place, not just for yourself, but so in 20 years when the next people are doing whatever they're pushing for, they're encouraged and able to do that as well. Because that's the path. That's just the interconnected path for everything. Do a backflip. I wish I could. I wish I could. How does one deal with naysayers and Debbie Downers in the workplace? I'm a productive realist myself, but it seems like some people are willing to let their concerns get in the way of getting projects done. So naysayers and Debbie Downers are two different things, right? So Debbie Downer to me is that person that just has such a negative view on the world and on life. You know, a naysayer is going to be, it's not, they're not as negative about it. They're going to say it can't be done. They're not as optimistic about it, but there's not that negative. Debbie Downers is the down aspect, right? There's that, to me, there's that differentiator. So, so how do I approach those people? I mean, the one thing I learned in my house is, and this is what my mom taught me, was that I can do anything. It's a lesson that came with both good parts and bad parts, but really, I fundamentally believe that, actually, and lately I believe it a little bit less, but I do fundamentally believe that I can do anything. And I think that's a great gift that she gave me, and carries some responsibility. It has some negatives to it, but that I've had to work through in my own life. But there are definitely a lot of people that they don't not only do they not have that, but they, you know, are just more, what's the word? Just more held back. So, but I think the interesting thing about a workplace, why is diversity important in a workplace? Right? Why is the most productive workplace going to be the most diverse workplace? It's because you're going to have so many different people coming together with different perspectives that you can have the best outcome possible. So in a way, it's good to have that balance of people who say it can't be done and it can be done. The question is can you collaborate, right? So can you create a collaborative environment where the naysayer can hear your perspective and you can sell whatever it is that you're trying to sell, right? Whatever the project is or the idea is, right? Do you have that power to be able to sell it? So does that make sense? So I think it's a good thing. I think you just have to recognize in some ways it's a good thing that there's someone to put stops on ideas. But at the same time, it's frustrating. I know I've been in that position. It's like, can't we just do it? Right? Do we have to really talk about, let's just go and do it. And that's a perspective that not everybody is able to buy into. But in some ways, you know, there's some value there. But it's really going to come down to that, you know, butting heads with that person versus working collaboratively with them to figure out how, right? How, and maybe it's even asking the question, like, so how do we deal with those people? So, because they might not be collaborative people. You are collaborative, they're not. So the question I like to say is, well, how do we do it? Like, what is the approach we need to do to get it done? And try to change their perspective a little bit from that straightaway no to the, oh, okay, well, this is how we could go about doing it. And then, you know, at the end of the day, if you get their buy-in, that it's actually really doable. And that's all about communication. And that's really what we learn, I think, working with people and living with people, is how to communicate what we're trying to accomplish and try to get buy-in, right? And collaborative accomplishments. So that's part of the effort of working in an environment as opposed to just being an individual performer. So work on getting better at selling the idea and getting buy-in, absolutely, as opposed to steamrolling and stepping on toes, right? Absolutely. And the other problem is that if you're doing that, then you become that guy, right? You don't want to be that guy, right? You want to be collaborative. You want to be the team player. And it's more work. It's frustrating. It's really frustrating. It's like, can't we just do it? Right? We're spending so much time talking. Let's just do it. But if you're not the boss, then that's how you got to go. All right, we got about 4 more minutes, so I got to roll things up here. If you did appreciate today, please just say thank you. I have a subreddit at VDAD here, r/VDAD, if you want to subscribe here. Here always, pretty typically, not always, at 5 o'clock Eastern Standard. It's 5:42 Eastern right now. And also I have my YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed, I need another, I think, 18 people. Then I'll stop asking people to subscribe on YouTube, just so I can name the channel and have a normal name as opposed to a bunch of letters, and allow people to find it. Last question. Most public schools do not teach financial stability. Should that be added to the curricula? Absolutely. Public schools teach academics, but they don't teach life, and it's unfortunate. So not just finance, but what about just regular emotional health kind of things, right? How about a class that teaches us that it's not about us and not, about comparisons, all these different things I talk about here every day. What about a class like that was part of the curriculum, or how to get along with people, right? So all soft skills, like all these skills that actually really make a difference. Where are those classes? There's actually a group. I was once traveling and I bumped into them. It's like the Muhammad Ali Center for Peace or something like that. And they actually have a whole curricula around some of this stuff. It was really interesting, and they brought it into schools, or a class in yoga, a class in mindfulness. I'll throw in my links again. So absolutely. So yes, financial stability, financial literacy, all these topics that are life topics. School needs to be about how to live, not just how to do academics. And that's a mistake that we make. But it is what it is. So, and some schools do offer these things. And if not, it's on the parents to teach those things. So to end, like we began, just a reminder to myself and to you, I want you to view yourself as a whole person. I want you to not focus on the 1 or 2 negatives that you have, rather the hundreds of positive attributes. And in doing so, I want you to see your own inner beauty and the beauty of others. And as you see your own inner beauty, I hope it allows you to really just feel free and to fly in the world and to accomplish whatever it is that you want to, because this is your world. So thank you for joining. It's always a pleasure to have the company, and I hope till we speak again that all is well. Cheers.